everyone. Yes, y'all got it. So it is my pleasure to welcome you to the William G. Anderson Lecture Series, Slavery to Freedom, An American Odyssey. I'm so glad that you all could join us. Those of you who are with us in person and those of you who are joining us on Zoom, thank you for being with us on this Friday evening. I first want to just start with gratitude. Wow, you all this season have been just so supportive and loving and warm, and your energy, whether we're in the series moments or you see me on campus. I just saw my friend walk up. If you all see me in the grocery stores, I just want to thank you so much for really supporting this series, really supporting the work that we're trying to do. We really want to have very fruitful conversations. And we want them to be purposeful so that it's not just us talking heads in the ivory tower, but really thinking about how it is we make our work actionable. I'm in a college of osteopathic medicine, and we talk a lot about being community-based and community-driven, and that's the work that we want to do. So I just want to take a moment. I'm going to take some license today. It's Friday. But I wanted to take a moment to just thank you all for the love and the support of this series and of this work. So I'm also excited about this. There's a lot of reasons I'm excited about tonight, but I'm excited because this is the first collaboration in this series that the College of Osteopathic Medicine and the College of Nursing have partnered. So yes. So I really want to, I want to thank, this is not on the paper, y'all. So I really want to thank my friend, Dr. Krista Walker, for just being an amazing partner in all of our work, but also this year deciding to sponsor with us. So thank you, Krista, for everything. I want to thank Dean Lee Small, the Dean of the College of Nursing, for saying yes, and thank my Dean, Joyce DeYoung. So thank you both for just agreeing to do this partnership and co-sponsorship. All right. Our focus really is to think about, to reflect on, to talk about Black histories and Black herstories, but also to really drive us to think about being intentional about how we are creating thriving Black futures, right? And so when I started working on this series, I was really focused that this is going to be interprofessional or interdisciplinary, but then also intergenerational, right? Because one day, y'all, I am going to go to my house and sit on the front porch, and I really want to know that the foot soldiers coming behind us are going to be ready, equipped to do the work excellently. And so I'm thankful that we're really starting to have robust intergenerational conversations. And so thank you all for participating in those. You didn't see it tonight, but the Storytelling Through Music 24-piece art collection by local artist Mila Lynn has been on display throughout our time this season. We've had it at each of the Slavery to Freedom events, so you've probably had a chance to see each of the 24 pieces to commemorate our 24 years. If you have not, we will have it on display on March 12th for our final speaker. But I just want to thank Mila Lynn for her beautiful artistry and just congratulate her for really doing an excellent job this year. All right, so about the artwork. So some of you have seen the prints. We give them as gifts to our speaker, but each of our sponsors will be receiving a print as well. Yes, I love some of y'all are excited. They will be coming in the mail because it's a little hard to bring them to the series. So each of the sponsors will receive one of the prints as well. Three more things that I have on three more things to say. Only one is on the paper. I want to thank my friend Norm Hubbard. I want to recognize EVP Norm Beauchamp, who just snuck in. So I didn't get to recognize them at the top, but thank you all for your support and sponsorship. Okay, I said I was going to take some license. So she doesn't know I'm going to say this, and I hope she doesn't kill me. I want to congratulate my friend, Kirby Gibson, because she received an award today, or just a little bit ago, as an emerging leader on MSU's campus, and she was recognized by the Women of Color Coalition. So, future Dr. Gibson, we are so proud of you. Congratulations. All right, and the last thing I'm going to say is if you didn't get a chance to join us for some of the other times that we convened this February, you can log on to the College of Osteopathic Medicine's YouTube channel. All of the speakers' presentations are on the channel. We just had a concert on Wednesday night. That is not uploaded yet. It was a phenomenal time, and I've just been put on notice by Dr. Anderson that he wants another concert, next year, so y'all pray my strength, okay? All right, so I am going to invite Dr. Red Dog Sina to come to the podium so that he can read for us the Michigan State University Land Acknowledgement. He'll be followed by Terrell Harris, who will sing the Black National Anthem. Lift every voice and sing. Thank you all.
Rani, I have to apologize for my voice. Somebody stole it. We think it'll be back in about 4 to 6 weeks. We collectively acknowledge that Michigan State University occupies the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Anishinaabe, Three Fires Confederacy of Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi peoples. In particular, the university resides on land ceded in the 1819 Treaty of Saginaw. We recognize, support, and advocate for the sovereignty of Michigan's 12 federally recognized Indian nations, for historic indigenous communities in Michigan, for indigenous individuals and communities who live here now, and for those who were forcibly removed from their homelands. This is really not painful, don't worry. By offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm indigenous sovereignty and will work to hold Michigan State University more accountable to the needs of American Indian and indigenous peoples. This is an issue of equity, and it's an issue of enforcing federal law. This is not a negotiation. Thank you.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our resounding rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling seas. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the dark past has brought us. facing the rising sun, for a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
Good afternoon or evening, everyone. My name is Crystal Walker, and I am the Assistant Dean. Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Crystal Walker, and I am the Assistant Dean of College Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in the College of Nursing. And I am here to introduce our speaker for this evening. So, Dr. Rani Whitfield is a board-certified family physician with a certificate of added qualification in sports medicine. He's a native of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and he attended the University High School in Baton Rouge, where he earned his undergraduate degree from Southern University and A&M College, also in Baton Rouge. He completed medical training at Meharry Medical College in Nashville, Tennessee, and completed his residency in family medicine at Frankinson Medical Center in Dayton, Ohio. Dr. Whitfield earned his certificate of added qualification in sports medicine from Ohio State University. He is an impassioned advocate for increasing the awareness of health-related issues such as HIV/AIDS, obesity, cardiovascular disease, and substance abuse. Dr. Whitfield is very active in his local community and with the surrounding areas. He serves on nonprofit boards and in numerous advisory roles. He is a life member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. He is a life member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. You're welcome. And he has a daughter, Rani, and a son, Rani, Jr. And in his leisure time, he plays bass guitar and sings with his band as he exercises regularly. So let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Rani Whitfield.
Thank you. How are you guys doing this evening? Great. It is truly an honor and a blessing, such a warm welcome when I came in. And look, I speak all the time, but it's nervous. I'm in Michigan, and it's 13 degrees earlier, so it's a little cold for me. But I just truly appreciate the welcome and the opportunity to speak to you guys. So I'll jump right into it. Let me see. I don't think, is the clicker here? Do I have a clicker? Should be underneath. Yes. Here we go. All right, great. So, guys, I really have no disclosures to make, no financial obligations, and all the money I do make goes to those children and my wife at home. So, trust me, I have no disclosures to make today. The main objective today, and look, I want us to, you have these list of objectives and all these things you're supposed to learn and go through, but I want to read this, that we will all leave here with an open mind, willing to dig a little deeper into understanding, typo, the history of Africans in America, the root causes of health disparities among African Americans, and how diversity in the medical field can improve health and health outcomes. Now, before I jump into it, I have written a children's book, and so I have a couple giveaways, so hopefully you guys will get these right, because I don't want to leave with 3 books. So I have 3 quizzes throughout this presentation, and I hope that you get them right. If not, I'll be very embarrassed. So we'll start with the first one, and by show of hands, does anybody know who this is? Uh-oh. We're going to lose already. Do I have one? Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. So I'm going to give you the book because you tried. Dr. James McCune Smith, the first African-American physician. However, he was not trained in the United States because at that time they did not allow African-Americans to be trained. He was trained in Glasgow. So that is Dr. James McCune Smith. So I can't tell anything about me without my origins and who I am. And so this is my beautiful family. To the far left, my brother Kevin Whitfield, member of Omega Psi Phi. Everybody makes mistakes. My very lovely mother, Shirley Whitfield. I'll talk more about my mother, my patriarch, and my father, late great George Whitfield in the middle. My very lovely sister Giselle. Of course, the handsome Dr. Whitfield, I'm the best looking one in the family. And my oldest brother, Eric. Below is the immediate family. To the very far left, a daughter who's confused because she goes to Oregon, Rani. My very, very beautiful wife, Kiara, and the prince and the king of the family, as he thinks so, RJ. So Rani Jr. So that is my family. That is who I made and who made me. And I'm absolutely nothing without these lovely people. So who is this hip-hop doc and why in the heck would you guys bring me here? I consider my man a man of many talents. I'm from Baton Rouge. I'm an HBCU product with the Southern University, the only HBCU system in the country. We have 3 campuses and 5 colleges. Again, talked about my mom and dad. That's coming up soon. I'm a coach to Biddy basketball, probably the most frustrating thing a young man can do is coach 5-year-olds in basketball. I'm a mentor, which is a great blessing to a lot of young students who are pursuing avenues who want to go into medicine. So I have students that rotate throughout my office and visit and ask questions a lot. I'm also an author of a children's book, which we'll talk about. A musician and a DJ. The natural transition from rapping or MCing, as they call it, was DJing. So I now DJ actually weddings and parties, and mostly my patients. They pay well and they feed me, so it's a very good deal. Yes, I am a doctor, by the way. I do that as well. A winemaker, and I'm also the vice chairman of the Southern University System Board of Supervisors. So this, again, is the only HBCU system in the country. 3 campuses, Shreveport, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, with 5 colleges, 1 of agriculture and 1, we have a nursing school as well. So that is who I am, and these are the parents. And so pretty good looking couple, I think. And that's who made me. So my dad died a couple years ago, had prostate cancer at a very early age in his 50s, but died from other complications that typically kill African-American men. Diabetes, hypertension, and chronic kidney disease. In his last 3 months, he ended up on dialysis. They are the products of HBCUs. They went to Arkansas A&M. Very, very proud of my parents. My dad had his EDD and doctorate in education, did some military time. My mother had her master's in counseling. My dad's a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. There you go. And my mother's a member of Delta Sigma Theta. I met some Deltas earlier. There you go. There you go. My parents were very, very active in the civil rights movement, and tons of stories I could tell you about them. My dad being pulled over on the side of the road. My mom said she knew he wasn't going to make it home. He was arrested, put in jail, typical situation that black men experienced back in the 60s. But he did make it home. But he was very involved in the Student Nonviolent Coalition. And I have freedom fighters, but it's actually freedom riders is what it should be, another typo. But my father was actually responsible with several other men of integrating pools and dormitories in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. So this is what I come from. I have no option or angles other than to be here to try to educate and to pass on their legacy to not only just you, but my son and my daughter as well. My mom was an active participant as well. She fed them. For those of the young people who don't know who the freedom fighters and what SNCC did, but they would ride buses, they would do sit-ins. So my parents have been called out of their names, spit on, had ice cream and stuff poured on them. They went through a whole lot so that I could be here. So I tell folks that I'm blessed, but I also live a very, very privileged life. And so I'm very thankful for God for the things that he's done for me and for my parents as well. And my mom's doing great at the ripe old age of 86, doing very well. This is actually my Uncle Bill, my dad's youngest brother, and he is serving food at one of the breakfast programs that the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense created. And I have to add the part, people always say Black Panther Party, but you have to say self-defense. Many of the organizations that you know of or see of that deal with African Americans, HBCUs, historically black colleges, the Deacons for the Defense, the Black Panthers, didn't evolve from violence. They've always been painted as violent and militant, but they evolved to protect the rights of black people. And so he was a part of that. And as you see what he's doing, he's serving food. I'm so proud of that picture. Every time I see it, I get emotional just to see my uncle, who I call, Uncle Bill, but he was very involved in the Black Panthers, as well as my dad's third oldest brother, Bob. My dad was the oldest, Uncle John, my two aunts, Uncle Bob, and Uncle Bill. They both worked closely with Huey Newton and Stokely Carmichael, as well as Peter O'Neill. And there's a great documentary I encourage you to watch called A Panther in Africa. My Uncle Bill on that picture was exiled for allegedly transporting arms across state lines and being in a shootout with the Black Panthers, with the police in Oakland, California. And so you can look at that. So he was in Africa for 30 years, was able to come back at some point, but ended up spending the majority of his life in Africa because he enjoyed being there so much. So that is another piece of who I am and why I do what I do. To the very far left, the tall, dark-skinned brother with the gun in his hand, that is my cousin, Edward Leroy Whitfield. That is on the cover of Newsweek. That picture is called Campus Guns. And in 1969, 1 month after I was born, almost to the date, I think that was April 3rd when this happened, they took over the Student Center because the black students were not allowed to use the Student Center. And so I mean, why are you doing this, Doc? Why are you talking about this? Well, we have to know our history so that we know where we come from. And it's very important for me to understand that they fought so hard that I could live this privileged life that I live. And so Cousin Ed is still alive. He does talks around the country. This guy is 6'8", 265 pounds, playing a clarinet, but a very intimidating brother. And so they were escorted out by the National Guard, but able to change, the president of Cornell changed that ruling. And of course, Cornell as well, Alpha Phi Alpha was founded in 1906 because African-American students had to get together and find out how to study and share testing. And so these black men got together, and the fraternity evolved from being forced to work together. So I always when I talk to my white colleagues that don't quite understand the history and say that these groups were violent, or why do y'all have black organizations, and we'll get into that a little bit. In many cases, we were forced to because that was the way we had to support each other. So why would I use hip-hop? You know what's going on. And a lot of people refer to what's going on the radio, which is rap music, as hip-hop. We're talking about the culture of hip-hop. And so to the purists, and back in the day, give me 5 on the backhand side, or all the lingo. Now we saying this lit and this up and all the stuff that we say now, but they had some very cool lingo back then. But the word hip meant to be cool, intelligent, and movement. Obviously, hopping is a movement. So when you talk to a purist about hip-hop, he's going to say that hip-hop means intelligent movement. And so the elements of hip-hop include not just rapping or MCing, not just DJing, not just b-boying or b-girling, which is breakdancing, graffiti art, but also knowledge. And so when you talk to the purists of hip-hop, which evolved out of, and we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of hip-hop now, that's where it came from. Now, has it changed significantly? Do I like what's going on in hip-hop? I really don't. But I have attempted to use that to my benefit to reach young people. And if I had to give you a general theme for the message that I want to deliver tonight, is meeting people where they are. So my original goal was to partner with Jay-Z or Kanye and come on stage mid-show, and he just did a cold-blooded song and the crowd is hype, and I walk out there and we're like, look, y'all, I'm Doc, and I want y'all to stop smoking. Yeah. Well, it hadn't quite gone that way. But I have been open, some doors have been open. And I got that line, deliver health message to the masses. It was in one of the rap songs that I do. I might bust one freestyle for y'all, depending on how nice you guys are. But I became a national spokesperson for the American Heart Association, and I got to work closely with Cicely Tyson, B.B. Winans, Chrisette Michelle, and I would travel with these folks to do media tours. And so I became an expert on stroke and heart disease for their company. And so people would see me, and then I'm backstage with Beyonce's father, and like people at Anthony Anderson. I'm like, man, this is really cool. So God sometimes takes you in a different direction to get you to that same point. And that's not the way that I thought it was going to go. And so because of that, I got to become a medical expert for BET, a regular on the Chuck D Show, one of my favorite artists with Public Enemy. He's a rapper with a Public Enemy who spoke on some conscious issues. Interviewed Little Boosie, who's probably one of the more controversial hip-hop artists out there, but he introduced me to a bunch of other young men that I could talk to, and he's very influential. I did something with Big Frida as well, and we're coming up to that. And then again, developing personal relationships. You know, you have to sometimes separate what you see on the gram and on their music videos from the actual people. And I will share with you one thing. The biggest issue that I have with most of the rappers when they come in is anxiety and insomnia because of the lives that they live. And so I'm constantly dealing with the mental health of these young black men that they only feel comfortable talking to me about. And it's hard not to take those issues with me and take them home sometime. So this is D1. Anybody ever seen this guy before? D1's a big guy. D1 owes me his life. I'll just say it to you like that. D1, New Orleans rapper, inspirational gospel, never cursed, doesn't disrespect women in his music. And his first project on CD with pictures and posters and all that was a project with yours truly called State of Emergency. It's probably the wackest album ever made. But we did it together in a course of about 2 weeks. And we have become fast friends. I talk to him on a regular basis. He is currently in an internet beef with some major hip-hop artists because he's challenged them on their platforms, using disrespectful words and lyrics to influence these young people. And their argument is, this is how I feed my family. How much, because D1 is not the millionaire. He's not a Rick Ross. He's not building $20 million homes in different places. And he's done small turkey and Christmas giveaways, but not to the level that he's done. But he's saying, why are you using your platform to influence these young black men to continue killing and hurting each other? And so he's in an internet beef, and I worry about him sometimes, but he's a very spiritual guy, and he's like, I'm not scared, Doc. I have to challenge them and meet them where they live, and so I support him in his efforts. But a very, very good friend of mine. And together we did a song called The Fast Song, talking about stroke warning signs, one of my bigger hits on YouTube. My actually biggest video was an interview with Lil Boosie about his diabetes, and I can only say that because he talked about it on the internet. So I got to go to this guy, Shade 45, Sway in the Morning, very, very big iconic figure in the hip-hop scene. A lot of young people respect and look up to him. I go on this show by myself. He plays the entire song, and then I was critiqued by his audience, and I got rave reviews on the song, The Fast Song. Like, I didn't think a doctor could rap like that. And so the mnemonic fast, face, arm, speech, time fast, what we used in the song, and I've actually had patients connect with the mnemonic to actually get their patients to the hospital because of the mnemonic. Am I saving a bunch of lives? I don't know, but if I saved one, it made a difference. So Sway in the Morning was an intro to that piece. Big Frida. Big Frida's a big, big personality in New Orleans, well-loved. If I called her right now, she'd answer the phone. Frida and I did a song during COVID, Bring Back the Family, that raised awareness about COVID, hand washing, social distancing. Really, really cool experience. And she is a true character, but was very passionate. I mean, hung it out. We're walking out of the studio, and she's like, you don't want my phone number? I'm like, yes, I do, Frida. Can I have your phone number? Frida is my height, and she's a character. But so, again, not Jay-Z, but definitely reaching people that are in my community, people that are closer to me. So I was very excited about that. And this is a Moo Moo Fresh. A lot of people don't know about Moo Moo. If you guys ask me my favorite rap artist, it would be either Moo Moo Fresh or Lauryn Hill. It's probably not who you expected me to say it all. Two of the coldest rappers ever, just lyrically talented, put bars together, just rhythmic, just flow. And she's Grammy nominated, and there was a fundraiser on campus, and I was able to get her to come down for a very, very significantly reduced rate and help us raise money for some projects on Southern's campus. So we became fast friends, and we keep in touch on a regular basis. So not the Kanyes and the Jay-Zs, but also people that have some influence. Now, that's Lil Boosie and my mom, and she taught him in school, so they have a relationship, and it's an interesting one. He's a character. Again, very controversial figure, says some things that are off the cuff, but one-on-one and at an individual level, he's the guy that put me in the room with a lot of these big hip-hop artists to give me a platform to speak to other young black men. So sometimes you got to go a roundabout way to get where you need to go, but as long as I'm not compromising my values and views, and he knows where I stand on drinking, drugs, sex, violence, and it's a mutual respect, but he has introduced me to a lot of folks, so I appreciate him for doing those things. Now, his next two guys are probably two of the biggest hip-hop artists in the country, very controversial, And I had to share this with you because I want you to understand why. This is Fred O'Bain. These all guys from Baton Rouge. Baton Rouge has some of the biggest rap artists in the country right now. Fredo's a controversial guy. The next guy I'm going to show you, they have a true beef between each other. There's a lot of bloodshed on both sides of there. They're from two parts of the same neighborhood. South Baton Rouge is called the top and the bottom. Fredo's from the top. TBG and the NBA Youngboys from the bottom. They call it the bottom. And so these two neighborhoods have been at war for years. And so they have both moved out of the city of Baton Rouge. And because of my relationship as their physicians, have contributed to multiple fundraisers and things I've done in the community, but do not want their names on the projects because it would hurt their reputation. It makes absolutely no sense to me, but if I elevate them in a positive way, it hurts their streaming views and it's just a very bizarre relationship. But they're like, look, we'll buy books for the kids, which is why I have this folder. I'm doing something called Reading the Rhythm with the hip hop doc with the book that I wrote. I'm going to be traveling the whole state speaking to kids. Charter schools are buying the books in bulk. I don't make money off of it, but I want to read not just to the children, but to the parents with the children, so influence these young people how to read more. And we'll get to that in a second. And the same thing, that's the NBA Youngboy. He is probably the top rap artist in the world. He has multiple millions of followers on social media. If he posts a song right now, he made over $100 million. He's been on house arrest for 2 years or 2.5 years and made over $100 million streaming last year. Didn't do a concert. So these guys have lots of money and lots of resources and access, and if you could just flip them in one direction, which has always been my dream and my goal, it would be amazing, but there's a lot to that. There's layers to it, so I do the best I can with the options that I have. So here's my first attempt at a book. Went through Fiverr. I had the artist draw. Came out pretty good. I wrote it. Look, it's a children's book, guy. It didn't take me 5 years to write it, but it took me 5 years to write it because life goes on. But I did get it finished. And so the whole goal was just a legacy piece. So RJ, my seed, my little guy, would know his dad loved him so much at 5 years old that he would write a book about him. Well, because of the platforms that has been built based on all of that stuff that I just showed you, now I'm reading across the state of Louisiana, have gigs booked up through next year to just go read to kids in front of parents. And so privileged life, yes, but I also work Mondays till 8 or 9 o'clock at night, Mondays and Thursdays, swimming lessons on Tuesdays, basketball practice on Wednesdays, coaching on Fridays, games on Saturdays and or Sundays. So you have to find time as a parent to educate your children. And so whether it's not always quantity, it's the quality of time. And so the other night, RJ wanted to dribble and work on it. He loves the game of basketball. I said, well, while we're dribbling, son, you got to do sight words. So you can go on my YouTube and see me holding up sight words. And he's dribbling with the left hand, and he's reading his sight words, and we switched to the right hand because I got home at 8:30, has to be in bed by 9, but we had to get our drills in and his sight words. So you got to make it happen, guys. You got to make it happen. So this will be the book that you will be receiving for your attempt at saying that was Frederick Douglass when it wasn't, but I'm not going to talk bad about you. Kind of looked like Frederick Douglass, though. He did. So yeah, that's been my goal, and I'll tell you this too. I feel like it's a lot harder to reach the age group that I was talking to. In Baton Rouge, there's 2 major gangs in the city, like I mentioned, and you're talking about a teacher who was in my office last week. I'm sorry, in the second week of January, whose student was killed on New Year's Day. She said, Doc, I was at the funeral. Half the funeral had on red hoodies. The gang is called the Bleeders, Bleedas. She's not scared. She works in the school system, not intimidated at all. The pastor demanded that she sit with them. She says, as the funeral's going on, some of the vultures come in all black. They had to shut the funeral down. The SWAT team shows up. And then just a week ago, they killed the brother of that young man. And so these are the conditions we're dealing with. So in my spiritual realm, I feel like God blessed me with this 5-year-old and this book as a way to kind of catch them. I don't feel like I can reach that age group anymore. So it's like, now we're going to go a little bit younger and catch them before they make the mistakes. So guys, I don't know what my role, but I feel like when God calls you to do certain things, you just follow his lead. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm sorry, we messed it up. Take it back. So, did we get an answer already? Yes, she is. That is Mahoney. Well, since you're so quick about it, who is she?
She's the first African-American nurse.
You probably shouldn't be answering that question.
But I'm proud.
But you got a book. Let's give it up. She got it right. So Mary Mahoney, not only was she the first, she's the first African American to graduate from an American school of nursing. So that point is the point. And again, we're going to get into some of these disparities and things, but that point is the point that really needs to be made. So why is history and health important? Why did all that history about me? Well, you kind of got to know where I came from and why I got into this stuff. The more you know your history, the more liberated you are. Maya Angelou. Everybody knows about Maya Angelou. And in Cornel West's book, Race Matters, to eliminate disparities and achieve health equity, we must connect our past with our present and grow comfortable about race, racism, and social justice. And discussing race can be very, very uncomfortable for some folks. And all these things, a lot of my African-American friends in here have probably heard, get over it, it happened 400 years ago, that's in the past. Man, y'all had a black president. I don't see color. I hate that. I see color. I love to see color. The cultural barriers, we need to know that somebody is Hispanic or African American or LGBT. You need to know about the person so you can connect. And again, it's meeting people where they are. Why do we need Black History Month? I don't agree with it either. We should have Black History Year. It should be just every day. But, it's another discussion. Why do we need HBCUs? Without HBCUs, I probably wouldn't be here. My parents wouldn't have been here. They were formed because there were not places for African Americans to go, so we had to come up with these things. I don't like it separate, but that's what it was, and that's where it came from. So just having those conversations. And look, I forgot to tell y'all, there's random pictures of stuff that don't relate, but I had to throw up. Y'all got a black president. I got a chance to meet Obama, and it was that guy went from basketball to world affairs in seconds. A very brilliant man. It was great to meet him. My mom was saying, you got that tie on. He probably thought you was a Muslim. What was going on? Like, what are you talking about, Mom? What are you talking about? Like, so that's been an ongoing joke. A couple of my friends that are in the Nation of Islam, I'm like, bro, you represented us well. You represented us well. It's like, oh, man, come on. So I did get a chance to meet the president. Great conversation. Spent 2 hours with him. And, I mean, he was super cerebral. It was a very great and I challenged him to basketball. And I did say that I would have rather met Michelle than him. And he told me, watch out, Doc. So I think I'm on a list now, but it's all good. So personally, these are some things that have happened within the last year to me. Anytime I'm in the mall or grocery store and I wear my scrubs everywhere, so it's an easy fix. I don't have to worry about changing. I'm wearing a board meeting sometime. I just got off call. I wasn't on call. It's just a quick way to get there. Are you a nurse? I bought my practice from a white physician, Dr. Tommy John, very, very awesome physician, who I'm tired of medicine. And so my first experience is walking in the room with the patient after the nurse, his white nurse who stayed with me for about 5 years, to help me transition, because he knew the challenges that I would face as a black physician. When I would walk in the room sometime, they'd say, well, where's the doctor? It's like, I'm Dr. Whitfield. I've had several of his patients years ago left me because they said they would have preferred to have seen a white doctor. And that's not uncommon amongst many of my African-American physicians. I've had patients in surgical procedures, emergency surgical procedures, refuse a black surgeon until they get a white surgeon. That is crazy. And then I thought you were of Indian descent. Now, that's an inside joke. My dad wanted to name all his kids African names. This is a true story. My brother Eric would have been named Kazavuvu, and my mom was not having it. And so when he got to the youngest, she had to compromise, so he changed the name of Rani, R-O-N-N-I-E, to the short letter A, and I'm Rani, R-A-N-I, but it means Indian or princess, queen or princess in Indian. And so I found that out during my interview at Howard Medical School when I walked in, and an Indian gentleman was just dying laughing like, oh, man, I thought you were female. I was like, this is not cool. So I had to call my dad and ask, did you bother to look up my name? As smart as he is, he wasn't too smart that day. So got a chance to meet Kobe, one of the best days of my life. I spent about 30 minutes talking to him. My mom wanted to meet Michael Jordan. I saved for 10 years to go to the Michael Jordan fantasy camp. And for one day, when he showed up, everybody forgot Michael Jordan was there. So we got pictures with him. Very gracious guy. It was a cool experience for me. So of course I cried the day that he left us in an untimely fashion. And I have a daughter, so a lot of that hit home for me. But these guys are some personal experience that I still have. So you guys have all heard this quote. I won't beat it to death, but of all forms of discrimination and inequalities, injustice and health is the most shocking and inhumane. It is more degrading than slums because slums are a psychological death, while inequality in health means a physical death. And Dr. King made this speech, or that statement, at a medical convention. And so there's a slide I want to show you in a few seconds where we kind of address equality or equity versus being equal. Because a lot of folks think because we can go to the same restaurants and we can hang out at the same places and go to the same schools now that everything is equal. Well, in a sense it is equal, but is it equitable? In the 1619 Project, this is a professor out of Harvard University. There has never been any period in American history where the health of black Americans was equal to that of whites. Disparities is built into the system, and some of you guys might not agree with that, but if you look at the history, I tend to agree. So when I got invited here by the School of Nursing, I started to do a little research on nursing. This is a really great resource and book by Sandra Davis and Anne Marie O'Brien that talks about diversity and equity. And I won't go too deep into this, but as you all know, there was segregation for a while. Meharry Medical College, which was founded in 1876, would not be here had not a white group of men, family, the Samuels say, hey, we need to help you all form the school. But that was because African-American patients weren't allowed to be taken care of by white nurses. And so they had to find ways for us to be taken care of. And so you had segregation as well into the 20th century, segregated hospitals. The Nurses Associated alumni of the U.S. and Canada would not support nurses of color. The National Association of Colored Graduate Nurses, founded in 1908 due to lack of inclusion. The National Black Nurse Association in 1971 formed because of racism in nursing and discrimination. The Association of Black Faculties in Schools of Nursing had to fight so that black nurses could publish. But this, guys, as you see, is in 1989. So I used to do a post on Instagram called Not So Long Ago. Some of the stuff is not so long ago. I'm 55 years old, March 8th. And I can remember being born in a segregated hospital in Baton Rouge called Women's Hospital. There was a black and white waiting sections. At that time, they weren't labeled black and white, but you knew that the blacks waited on one side and the whites waited on the other side. Dr. Anthony Leggio, an Italian physician who delivered me, refused to make my mom sit on the black side. My mom said she would sit in a corner with a pencil, scared to death thinking somebody was going to do something to her, but he said, you're sitting in the lobby where I want you to sit, and we're going to deliver you where the white babies are delivered. And that was me. I was the fifth baby born in Women's Hospital, African-American baby born in Women's Hospital. So there's some history to me. But the nurses experience a lot of nursing, and this is a very special story to me because some of these nurses are still living in Baton Rouge, and I have a history with them. These are the nurses of 4 South. It's a hospital in Baton Rouge called the Baton Rouge General, and this is in 1955, before black doctors were allowed in this hospital that currently exists today. They had one wing, not one floor. They had one wing for everything, gunshot wounds, babies. Everybody was on one floor, and when the floors would be overflowed, especially with the babies, they would put the babies where? In the nurses' station. So you're talking about chances of increased morbidity, mortality, infection rates. The great thing about the nurses of 4 South was that they had very, very low mortality and morbidity. These were some very talented nurses. They just weren't given an opportunity to practice how the skills that they knew. When all the rooms were filled, patients were put in the hallway with screens for privacy. We even had obstetric patients on the hall, recalled Nurse Jackson. Surgery patients, isolation patients, gunshot wounds. Black women gave birth in the 3rd floor delivery room. Then they scoot them up to the steps to the chocolate nursery, and that's what it was called, said Joseph. The mothers were in a ward with screens. When the nursery filled up, the babies had to be put at the nurse's station. And that's some of the nurses of 4 South that are still alive today. And had it not been for these amazing women, black doctors would have taken a lot longer to get into the hospitals. But they were the trailblazers. Those are the women that made it possible for us to get into the hospital. So if you talk to some historians, they'll say black folks had about 4 phases here in this world. We came here as things, not people. And that's a very famous picture. Whipped Peter was a slave that in the 60s escaped the Lion family, a lion plantation. And, a couple of guys that escaped with him were killed, beaten, and battled. He had been severely beaten. And this is around the time that mass media became popular. And so this picture was circulated around to show the brutality of slavery. It's around 1863. But that is Whipped Peter. So again, when we just started to find our existence, we were considered things, not people. There was no such thing as informed consent. They could do whatever they wanted to do to African-American bodies during slavery. And we'll get into that as well. And so then there was the fight, of course, for our freedom, and we were emancipated and had a little window of time during the late 1860s where we did okay. But then we got into the fight for our rights. So Jim Crow laws, you couldn't laugh. You couldn't walk on the same side as a street as a white person. You couldn't look a white man in the eyes. To my fraternity brothers, there are some pictures of alphas, and I couldn't understand why there were pictures sometimes where they would be looking straight at the camera, and sometimes they'd be looking this way. Well, you couldn't look a white man in his eyes, so they would tell when they would take the picture, they would have all the guys look this way in this direction because you couldn't look a white man straight in his eyes. So these are some of the things that we had to deal with. So after being emancipated and fighting for the freedom, then we had to fight for civil rights. And then some people will tell you now, if you talk to some of the black historians, that we're now in a fight for our lives based on brutality and the things that are going on. And this is not to say that there is not some responsibility incumbent on African Americans to address some of these issues as well. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm in the community talking to young black men about the violence and crime. But why is it that way when you have these wealth and economic and income gaps that we can never close? I don't think we'll ever be able to close them, but there's some issues there. So I don't know if everybody can see this, but this is what we mean when we talk about equity versus equality versus actually justice. And so you can see the boxes on the first image are all equal in height, but the little guy on the far right, he can't see because they're equal, but he's shorter than the other two guys. So now you make them equitable by using, one guy doesn't need a box, the other two need boxes of different heights to make it equitable. But if you really want the whole thing, you remove those barriers and now you have justice. And we are so far away from that. I think we have made some progress, but there's a long way to go. Not just in healthcare, but in this world in general. These are my colleagues from Southern University, and they did a feature on us about just being black doctors. So there's always that question, why won't we go to the doctor? Poverty, income inequality, wealth inequality, food insecurity. One of the greatest things my hospital did, we use Epic as our form of electronic medical records, and they have in a corner social determinants of health. And I got an award from the hospital for addressing the social determinants of health. If I get a new patient in the office that has no history, I'm just here to establish care, heard you're a cool doctor, what's your history? Nothing. I don't take any medicines, his blood pressure's fine. I go straight to that corner. And we start talking about living situations, and before I know it, I have generated an entire note because there's so many things that have not been addressed by the previous primary care doctors. Like, why did they not ask about your living situation? Oh, your lights were turned off recently. What's going on there? I'm also blessed to have a social worker in the office who can help me address some of those issues as well. So that's uncommon, but I'm very fortunate to have that situation. And then we have that medical racism thing, and we're going to get a little bit into slavery. I'm sure everybody heard about Henrietta Lacks, Black Women as Superbodies, and the Tuskegee experiment. If you don't know who these guys, Lee Merritt and Chokwe Lumumba are two attorneys and civil rights activists. Chokwe is actually the 53rd mayor of Jackson, Mississippi, very, very poor town where, of course, Deion Sanders was, and they beat us. I'm not going to go into that because I'm still mad about the game, but that's another story. But we were all honored at a reception, and very, very strong, powerful men that fight hard for African-American civil rights. Why we won't go to stigma of having disease? A lot of my black patients, they don't want to talk about disease. They don't want to have a problem. I'm embarrassed about this. I don't want people to know. I'm challenged as the physician and family to always do the family history and the family tree when we have family reunions. So I have to talk about that. So I encourage my family to talk about their health. I have a cousin, Terry, who died from HIV, was ostracized from the family. Terry was a gay black male, was diagnosed with HIV, and the entire family, except for me and my sister, stopped talking to him. He moved to California and died a very, very sad death. And so it's hard to talk about that, but that was when HIV was first out, and there was all the stigma around HIV. And so it's hard to talk about Terry because no one loved on Terry when he found out he was ostracized by his own family. So the stigma of health is sometimes an issue with black men. Not knowing family history. I always tell my young people, just because your mom and dad had hypertension doesn't mean you're going to have it, but the risk is there. So we need to know what things to do to prevent it. So health education is important. So knowing family history. So again, we have those family reunions. We go through our family tree, and we talk about the hypertension, diabetes, high cholesterol. And then lack of awareness. African Americans have the highest rates of hypertension in the world. We deal with significantly large amounts of prostate cancer, and it seems that the cells seem to be more aggressive in black men when they do find them. COVID-19 just reared its ugly head and showed us the disparities in healthcare when it became apparent. I lost 30 patients in 2 years. I hadn't lost 30 patients since I've been practicing medicine from COVID. The majority of them were black men, and all of them had hypertension. Most of them had diabetes, and a few of them had chronic kidney disease and or diabetes. And so at one point we were trying to figure out, was there some relationship between COVID and hypertension and the medications, ACE inhibitors. A lot of research trying to figure out what it was, but I lost 30 people that weren't that sick from COVID. Of course, HIV, and HIV is it's kind of played down now. You don't hear as much about HIV in African Americans, but it's still killing. I work at a federally qualified health center, and the majority of patients that I see and treat with HIV they look like me. And of course, stroke. We're twice as likely to have a stroke than any other ethnic group. Why is that? The hypertension, the diabetes, the cigarette smoking, obesity, a lot of issues in our community. And so with all those things being said, why aren't they being addressed, and why won't that black man go to the doctor? Because of the medical mistrust and the things that have gone on in the past. So this is a very interesting picture. And there's another picture I could not find, but a friend of mine had it on his wall because he visited the Ivory Coast. And it's called The Point of No Return. So if you walk down that hallway, the picture that he has is right at the arches. And so it's just a beautiful shot of the ocean, and the water is blue and everything looks great. And then I said, man, it's beautiful. Where'd you get this picture? He said, keep looking, Rani, keep looking at the picture. And I start looking on the walls, and all you see is just blood-stained areas. At that point, all the slaves would be huddled into this area to go get on the ships to come through the trade, the Middle Passage. And if you refuse to go to the Middle Passage, you will get killed right there at that area. It's called the Point of No Return. And so there's several points of no return, and I don't know where this one came from. But my friend had actually visited one, and he was like, it was just a harrowing experience. He said he just felt the energy. It wasn't a good experience at all. But we had 246 years of slavery, and not just slavery that indentured slaves that would work off their time. And so many people say, oh, well, black folks had slaves, and there were some black folks in the United States that actually had slaves. People don't believe that, but there were some very rich African-American in this country that owned slaves, but in the form, not in the form of chattel slavery in Africa. They would have wars and battles and take their victims captive, and then they would indenture them out for 7 years, and they would go back to regular lifestyle. So some of the, I'm not saying all, but some of the tribes didn't know that they were selling their people into what they were about to come into called chattel slavery. And so again, whipped and stripped of their human rights, their names taken from them, put on these ships, beaten, barred, bruised, battered. It was rough. And so we were considered inferior and barbaric. Again, black folks were considered things and not people. And the only time that they received health care would be from their own folks, midwives, the spirit healers, or if you came to the slave trade and the slave owner wanted to see if an enslaved individual was healthy enough to work for him. So, and if he got sick, could he take care of him? And I'm sure everybody knows the story of James Marion Sims. Apparently a pretty interesting guy. He invented the modern speculum. They call him the father of modern gynecology. But he did over 30 surgeries on an African-American woman by the name of Anarcha without anesthesia. And 11 other women, Betsy and Lucy, and all the other two names that we know. We don't know any of their history and what happened to those ladies and what, how they felt. But they would pour hot water on black folks, and even up until 2015, 2017, there were articles written about black folks having higher pain thresholds and not requiring as much pain medication based on the studies that were done back in the 1830s. And at one point, when it comes to African-American women, they stopped importing slaves around 1807, so the black women became very, very important. And Thomas Jefferson, and I'm paraphrasing, but basically said the black woman was more important than any man on the slave because she could produce children. And so they were breeding black children then so that they could have more slaves. And so it's a very, 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 very twisted history. Another Louisiana, unfortunately, physician named Adolphus Cartwright came up with, they called it Negro medicine, but he came up with a concept called drapetomania, which said that slaves had a psychological disorder when they attempted to escape. Something was wrong with them from escaping from what they were going through. And these are things you guys can look up. This is not stuff I'm making up, and it's just knowing the history behind medicine and why when I encounter black patients, do my black patients know this history in most cases? No. But it's been passed down. I'll give you another quick example. When we would travel to Natchez, Mississippi as a little boy, I was 4 years old, we had to use the bathroom. It's an hour and a half from my front door when we lived in a neighborhood close to my HBCU. No one could get out of the car. We had to eat all our food in the car. Dad, mom would pack the food. We had a jar in the back of the station wagon. If you had to urinate, you had to pee inside of the car. We would not stop. I did not know why we wouldn't stop. I didn't understand that. There was a book that Dad kept up front. It was a green book. It was literally green. I'm like, okay, everybody knows about the green book now, but I didn't know what it was. I was 4 years old. I just knew we had some good fried chicken and some soda, and I didn't drink too much because I wanted to have to go to the bathroom, because if I had to go to the bathroom, Daddy wasn't going to stop. We couldn't stop between Baton Rouge and Natchez because they would lynch and or try to kill you on the way to Natchez, Mississippi. And that was in late 1960s, early 70s. And so those are the things that we were dealing with. So now I understand why my father felt that way. That whole thing about being home before the street lights went on, well, that wasn't just because of discipline. That was because there were sundown towns. And if you were in a sundown town after 5 o'clock or after the sunlight went down, as an African American, you could get lynched or killed. I'm sure everybody knows the story of Henrietta Lack's huge settlement, but she has the immortal human cell line, which was used to research COVID vaccines and immunogenotherapy. All these cells were used, and the family knew nothing about it. And so they settled with Johns Hopkins. I don't know what the amount was. I've been told numbers to the tune of $250 million. I don't know how often if they use the cells now, but those cells are immortal human cell lines that are used for great research to help us. So it's amazing how the bodies of black people were used to get things that actually benefit me personally today. Would not have the speculum were it not for Dr. Sims, but how did you get that speculum and the torture that those women suffered in order to have the information? Anybody ever heard of this book, Acres of Skin? Real interesting read. Dr. Kligman actually co-patented Retin-A, the drug we use for acne. But he walked into a predominantly black prison and saw these men and didn't say, I see a bunch of inmates or a bunch of men. I see acres of skin. And so, again, no informed consent, and he would do experiments and testing on these guys and pay them monies to get information and get knowledge. You know, not the typical way we do science today, but that's what he did. And so that's an interesting read as well for you. So, again, people don't understand why there's the medical mistrust amongst the African-American community. And these are just a few stories, guys. I could freak you out or bore you to death with the stories, but there's tons of other stories. And, of course, the famous Tuskegee experiment. I got the wrong number. It was probably like 399 men, I think, 399 with syphilis and 201 that were not. And they purposely treated these guys. The federal government purposely did not treat these guys when penicillin was already known to be an effective treatment for syphilis, to see the natural progression of the disease in these men. And so you expect a black man to go to a doctor and say, hey, I trust you. It's kind of hard for him to do that now. And I have a white colleague that I respect to the utmost who called me one day and says, Ronnie, you have a waiting list that's pretty extensive. Can you get this guy in quickly? I was like, man, you're just as competent, if not better than I am. He's a white physician, real good guy. He's like, nah, you got to see him. It's like, why do I have to see him? He's like, because he is not responding to me at all. So we're able to share medical records. I pulled him up, and he had missed 2 colonoscopies, hadn't had his prostate exam, didn't do blood work 3 times. I said, all right, send him over. And so when we sat down and had a conversation, I said, what's the problem? He said, man, I just couldn't connect. I don't feel like he could relate to me. And not bragging on me now, his A1C is under 6, if that makes sense to some of you guys. He's gotten his colonoscopy, he's gotten his prostate checked. And it's not that I'm the greatest physician in the world, but he felt more comfortable having a conversation with someone that looked like him and could talk to him on certain levels. And we're going to get into that as well. That's so again, I told you I'm a board of supervisors. I have better time with the kids than the board of supervisors. They too tight. They uptight. So our drum, we have the best band in the world. I'm just letting you know that right now. And so the drum major will do this little thing, and he can put his head on the ground, back bend. If I did it right now, y'all would be calling an ambulance. So I get to hang out with the kids. I mean, I pretty much just abuse my privileges. I'm with the cheerleaders, I'm with the band, and I just hang out with the students. I love my students at Southern. But we're talking about black men and their health, about 21 million black men in this country. Those numbers up and down, depending on what source you talk to. We suffer the worst health than any other ethnic group in this country. And again, for all the reasons that we discussed earlier, discrimination, lack of affordable health care, poor health education, cultural barriers, poverty, employment that does not cover health, insufficient medical and social services catering to black men. We don't have enough black psychologists and psychiatrists to see African-American men that will admit that they have mental health problems. So we don't have enough numbers, then how are we going to get them treated if they don't feel comfortable talking to other doctors? two other band members. The young man to the right actually played the memorial for my dad's tribute. We put a plaque up on campus at Southern University. So just some good kids, man. I love my kids. Black men, again, one of the poorest health profiles in the U.S. with an average life expectancy of 71. We're lower than everybody. Black women, white men, white women. We're at the lowest point. And it's because normally we're about health repair and not health maintenance. And what does that mean? A black guy's going to show up at the hospital with a problem. And this next picture, I'm going to skip them. I'll come back real quick, is a guy that did that. And I can only talk about it because this was a national news story. Sean Wallace is probably one of the best guys that ever played football for Southern University. And Sean had been having stomach pain and nausea, but he's a defensive coach, very committed to Southern University's football team. And he just got dehydrated and almost collapsed on the field, so the head coach made him go to the urgent care that night, and they found a tumor, and Sean had pancreatic cancer. And so he had been ignoring symptoms, he told me, for probably 8 to 9 months. And so that's an unfortunate thing for a guy. Can you blame that on medical myths or mistrust or whatever? Possibly. But you can also blame it on a guy that needed to work and didn't want to miss work because he needed to feed his family. And so, again, that very privileged life that I have where I don't have to, when they say I was on the front lines during COVID, working behind the computer, not seeing patients face to face, or my colleagues were in the ICU and the ER dealing with folks with COVID. Yeah, I was on the front lines in a sense because I was taking care of patients with COVID, but I also was not in the ERs and operating rooms. These guys were full PPE on trying to fight this virus that was killing folks by leaps and bounds. And so when you look at the leading cause of black men in general, heart disease is just it. What's sad about that is over 50 to 60% of African Americans have some form of heart disease. Only 4% of our country are black cardiologists. So again, speaking to the tune, and this is not saying that a white doctor, an Asian doctor can't take care of an African American patient, but that seems to be an issue in the black community that they tend to respond, African American men tend to respond better to doctors that look like them. Leading cause of death by age, and look at the first 2 years, between 1 and 44, homicide. And that's these hip hop artists that I deal with, that's a lot of the trauma that they experience or dealt with. And again, many of them come to me with insomnia and anxiety because of the lifestyles they live or the things that they've seen. These guys have seen murders. So now you got that mental health piece along with the homicide and the unintentional injuries and accidents that are killing our young people. And the rates of suicide, I don't remember anyone when I was in high school, I graduated in 1987, committing suicide that was African American. You were seeing increasing rates of suicide amongst young black men in their teens, young teens, 12, 13, and 14 years old. So mental health, many African American, they think it's taboo. I ain't telling a doctor that I'm scared or I'm anxious. That's not cool. I'm not going to be cool if I do that. Some of the common beliefs, and if you look at mental health across the board, we have about the same numbers as white Americans as well. African American and white Americans have about the same ratio of mental health disorders. But being depressed is just normal, and talking about it is weak. Just get over it. I saw one brother talk about how being vulnerable around his wife was a problem. And the one place that I can be vulnerable is around my queen. That's the only place that I can be vulnerable is around my queen. And so I don't know how Obama did. He must have had a room in the White House where he would just go clean off. And Michelle would be like, you finished? All right, now go back to work. But yeah, that's the one place that I feel like I can be vulnerable. If I can't be vulnerable around her, we're going to get divorced. That's the only person I can just go clean off, shed my tears, and she'll hug me and suck it up. You better? You straight? All right, honey, let's get back to it. And so, and if I needed counseling, I would, but sometimes I just need to get it off my chest. Getting help is the same as telling your business to a stranger. Black folks are notorious for keeping things in the house. We ain't telling nobody nothing. Don't you tell my business. Don't you let nothing get out of this house. It's not telling your business, but if you go to your doctor, patient confidentiality, we should be able to talk to your provider about it, and I should be able to find someone to help you with your problem. And nobody cares about your mental health anyway, which, again, myths in the community, and that's not true. But I have seen, and I'm speaking from a personal basis, black men being more open and talking about it because of initiatives that the Omegas have. The Omega Psi Phi has their own initiative about addressing black men's health. The Alphas have their own initiative as well. So there are initiatives across the country amongst black organizations, black men organizations that are trying to get these black men to talk more about their mental health. About 1 in 5 Americans, again, struggle from a mental health illness in any given year. Depression is the most common health problem in the United States. I beg to differ. I would think anxiety. but it just depends on what study you're looking at. About 7% of Americans experience serious depression each year, but African Americans are 20% more likely to have serious psychological distress than white Americans, and we don't quite know why. African Americans' depressive occurrences are more disabling, persistent, and resistant to treatment than those experienced by whites. Again, research. This is not stuff I'm making up, but why is this happening? We don't have the answers. Suicide, third leading cause of death in African Americans aged 15 to 24. We're 4 more times likely to die by suicide than African American women. And the number of African Americans who need mental health treatment and get it is only half that of whites. Is that because of access? Is that because of not seeking the help? Multiple factors that play into that as well. Barriers to black men's health, the stuff that we've been talking about, lack of access to health care and insurance, less likely to receive accurate mental health diagnosis. This was a real interesting fact, and you guys can look this up as well. African Americans with insurance and educated are less likely to be treated in the early stages of diseases and treated less aggressively by physicians that don't look like them. And so what's the barrier to that? Why is this happening? Why, if I have hypertension, is my doctor not paying attention to me or thinking that this is serious? And it speaks to some of the implicit biases and things that occur because we think that pain tolerance is higher. That there was several textbooks that were pulled in the 2020, 2015 nursing textbooks because they had information in those textbooks that were considered racist and described black folks in a way that was not consistent. Cultural mistrust of mental health professionals and healthcare professionals in general is common in our community. Only a small proportion of mental health professionals are African Americans. So we've got to train up a group of folks that look like us to address us. So from medical school to nurse care and providers. So I know we've been kind of focusing on black men, but I had to share this with you because one of the more devastating suicides that happened on our campus, we had 3 kids that were band members that were going home. They all were they were from Dallas area. They pulled their car on the side of the road. They had a flat, and a 18-wheeler hit and killed them dead. So we had to deal with an entire school of kids. These were some of the nicest kids you could ever meet. To show you how small this world is, one of them was 6'8". He was a tuba player. And I called him Big for Nothing. I said, hey, Big for Nothing. He used to see him on campus all the time. The sweetest kid in the world. Had no knowledge that I had been in his mom and dad's wedding. He never told me who he was. I was in his parents' wedding. And his uncle and I grew up together and played sports together. And so I wear his pin. I was meant to wear it tonight and forgot it at home. But I wear his pin at every board meeting to honor him. But this is Orlana Miller. Orlana was a young lady that brought energy to the school. I have pictures with Orlana, just a beautiful spirit. But apparently she was going through some stuff, and if you talk to any of her colleagues, she never once told anybody what she was struggling with. But if you read, this is what she said. I have been surrounded by people who may have honestly thought that I was okay, but I haven't been okay for a while. Miller said she failed to follow her own advice and thanked her mother. And I have written so many suicide notes in my life, but finally I've reached my end. Orlana went at 2 or 3 o'clock. She put a post on Instagram. No one could find her, and she walked into the Mississippi River at 2 o'clock in the morning. This is a treacherous, dark, cold, scary place to be. I don't know how she got there, walked into the river and killed herself. And so it devastated the school, and we have done all kinds of things to implement mental health procedures at Southern University to try to help our young students because they are still the cheerleading team is still recovering from this. I mean, it was hard. This child, if you met her, she would light this room up right now. She was just an amazing soul, and so it's kind of hard. So I actually DJ. That's her mom on the far right, 2 of the cheerleaders, and to the far right is what I call my niece Jada. She's now cheerleading for the Saints, and so that was a memorial that we did for the school, and I was the DJ for the event, and I set it off like I always do. So had a great time. But yeah, it was a great but sad celebration all at the same time to lose some. We've lost about 4 students at Southern to suicide. So we're really making or implementing things at our institution to try to address mental health with our young black students. All right, now don't shout it out. I know everybody knows who this is. Who gets the 3rd book? Can I get a hand raised, please? Yes, sir. Doc, who is that? Yes, do you recognize him?
Yeah, he's my good friend.
Y'all forgot. Doc is only 96 years old, so I forgot. Right. What's his name, though, Doc? What's his name?
He doesn't have one now. It's not the same.
It's not the same? All right. Well, Doc gets a book because that is Charles Drew. The Blood Bank, you should know about it. That's for you, Doc. Yes. It's way below your reading level, but you should be able to read it in about 2 minutes. So that's for you, Doc. So that's Dr. Charles. So I gave my 3 giveaways away, so there we go, guys. So do African Americans treated by African American providers do better? Absolutely, but does that mean they need to have an African American provider? No, we just need to be more culturally sensitive to our patients. So I have white patients, old patients, young patients, patients of different races, genders, gender identity. I'm still trying to figure out who, she, me, they, but you have to be sensitive to it. And when I have a patient that's challenging like that, I just say, look, I don't understand, explain it to me. And so you have to interact with your patients. And again, if I had to give you a theme for today, meet your patients where they are. You have to meet them where they are. That's my job to do. When I get home, I can be me, but in that office, I'm there to address their needs and try to make them feel better and to get better. Doctors who care for patients of the same race were far more likely to get higher Press-Ganey scores, though. So every month, we get Press-Ganey scores, and that's when you come to my office, it triggers an evaluation that you get on your phone or your computer that says, how did Dr. Whitfield do? Are you likely to report? I'll be happy to say if you Google me on Our Lady of the Lake Hospital, I'm, I think, 345 reviews, and I'm a 5-star. So I paid all my patients to say good things about me, and everything is going well. In a study led by researchers at Stanford, more than 1,300 black men in Oakland, California were recruited to fill out a health questionnaire after which they could get a free physician consultation and health screenings. The men assigned to a black doctor were significantly more likely to bring up specific health concerns to doctors and to go through health screenings for diabetes and cholesterol after the consultation. And this does not mean that black doctors are better than other doctors, white, what other ethnicity than the others, but there seems to be some benefit. And again, can doctors of other races caring for African American patients it's supposed to say but it should say get great results? Of course. But these are the things that we consider. Of course, race, we just talked about that. Appearance. I had a morbidly obese orthopedic surgeon in residency would tell folks before he would do their knee replacement, lose weight. And I'm looking at Dr. Turk like, Doc, you probably not the best resource for this patient to tell him to lose weight. Hometown. Sounds a little strange, right? Well, I'm not from everybody's hometown, but if you can identify with a patient in interaction, and this is for my future medical students and for my nurses, those conversations are important. So I might not know, but when I came here, I did my research and bumped into a guy in the lobby, and I'm a big Magic Johnson fan, and we started talking basketball. Usually, first of all, my new patient visits are 45-minute consultations. And so that first 15 minutes is spent chewing the fat. We're not talking about anything health-related unless you're bleeding. I got to get to know you. And that doesn't mean I'm going to know everything about you, but we're going to interact a little bit. My guys, I'm always find out about the sports. If he's a sports guy, if he's not a sports guy, cigar guy, whatever it is, I'm going to make some connection with that patient so that I can get information from them. And then once we get rolling, the follow-up visits become faster and I can get more information a lot quicker, but you got to interact. So hometown, not that important, but it makes a difference. Family background, very, very important. And I'm a father, so when my fathers come in, I lock in on the kids. Oh, you got a son? I'm pulling out my phone. I'm showing them RJ dribbling and doing his sight words. I mean, you got to find a way to connect with these patients so you can get information. Does it take a little bit extra effort? Yes, it does. Can you save a life doing it? You're damn right you can. And life experiences. Not all of us have the same life experiences, but understanding and appreciating and not judging. Do I agree with a lot of the lifestyles that the rappers that I take care of? Heck no, I don't. But I have to understand what's going on. I didn't tell you guys this, I worked in the prison system for 26 years. And so I saw a lot of black men and what they were going through. So I knew what was going on in the community of Baton Rouge with the gangs and the violence. And I knew why this guy's gang was mad at this guy's gang, because there's death on both sides and how they could probably never resolve it. Did I agree with it? No. But did I understand what they were going through? Yes, I did. And so I didn't judge them based on that. But I would make inferences on how we can change and how it can be better. And that's my role in the community. And not just to take care of their physical health. And you guys know health is just the absence of disease. That means you have no hypertension, no diabetes, but your mental health may be not together. Your financial health may not be together. So there's more things to address in a room with a patient than just their physical health, mental health, financial health, vocational health. All those things are very important to complete the package of what we call wellness. I want my patients to be well or head in a direction to be very well. So African American men in medical school, I think the numbers have changed, but there's less than 6% of the students, or 5% of the country of students or medical students are African American. And in the 2015 AMC report, Altering the Course of Black Males in Medicine, there were more black men applying and matriculating in 1978 than in 2014. And if you be quite honest, what are the incentives for us to go now? And what I'm seeing is many of the young black men that I talk to want to be the specialists. They don't want to go into primary care. Reimbursement is poor. It's a tough patient to deal with. Small increase in enrollment, I think, is now maybe 2.5, 2.6, but we're still way below the mark when it comes to African-American students. That's one of the future students of, well, he's a doctor now. That's been some years ago. But we did a volunteer clinic in New Orleans, and that young man came out and helped, and he was just happy to meet me, and we got some good conversation, and hopefully I share some things with him that influenced him to become a physician. African-American males in medical school, especially when they're not attending an HBCU. So I went to Southern University, a small black college. At the time I went to Southern, I think we had a total enrollment of maybe 10,000. It's now down to 7,000, 6,900. Meharry is a very, very small African-American school. And I tell you, the very first thing that we did, the very first day of school, we got dressed up in our white coats. They told us, come in our white coats. And we walked down the street to the community, and we brought the kids back to the school. It's called Community Day. And if I didn't learn anything from Meharry Medical College, I learned that bedside manner was the most important thing. 80% of the diagnosis that we make can be made by a conversation with the patient. MRIs, blood tests, CT scans, all that stuff is good. But if you are not talking to that patient, you're wasting your time. And doctors are so hurried now, and they tell you, oh, we want you to spend time in the room. Well, I work on RVUs, so I have to figure out a way to kind of beat the system. If this is being recorded, turn it off right now. I have longer patient appointment visits, so I see less patients in the day, so I can spend more time. Concierge medicine has been recommended to me. I don't have many patients that can afford to pay $2,000 or $3,000 in January and see me twice a year. That is a business model. That's not a care model, in my opinion, because most doctors that do that don't want a patient with hypertension, diabetes, high cholesterol, because they're going to have to see them frequently, and they're going to lose more money off their patient than they'll make. And so I can't do concierge. So I've just said I've got to extend my visits, spend more time with my patients, and I have a strategic team. That's why I did a tribute to the nurses, as you'll see in a little bit, about why I appreciate it, because they know my patients, and they're like, look, you cannot put Ms. Johnson here because RJ's got practice at 3, and I will not get out of here in time. So we adjust schedules based off the patients, but you have to know and have a relationship with your patients. Lack of mentorship, and that's one thing that I do, but it's just not enough of us to do it. I have people coming all the time, and then when you have a young black female who wants to be an OBGYN, and I don't have anybody to send her to, well, you can shadow me and hang out with me, but I don't know if this is what you want to do or if this is going to help you. So even when they do that, if it's not the profession that they're intending on going to, I say, well, look, I can show you some things. And one of the things that I do with my mentees is show them about the business side of medicine, which we didn't do a very good job of in medical school. I thought you went in and saw the patient, they paid you, and you was good. I tell you what, the bills come on time, but that reimbursement from Medicare can be a little slow. Financial barriers, I mean, tuition, that type is tough. It's tough to afford medical school, and especially when you're a minority that may not perform too well on the MCATs. One of the things that I'm doing as a board member of Southern University, we're trying to have a medical school in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So our board is actively researching and seeing if it's a feasible model to put into the school. Our schools, HBCUs, exist because they have lowered the standards a little bit. So our ACT and SAT scores are not nearly as high as the PWIs. And so these students can get in, but then we also have problems getting them out because they're sometimes behind the 8 ball. So you're trying to meet the mission of educating and helping these young people, but in the same sense, it's like, geez, we're going to have trouble getting them out. Makes your scores look bad, and the government wants to cut funding, and so it's a vicious cycle. And then again, African-American men face unique challenges in medical school that can affect their academic success and overall well-being. And by recognizing and addressing these challenges, stereotyping and bias, lack of mentorship, financial barriers, mental health challenges, we can create a more inclusive and supportive learning environment for all students, regardless of their background or identity. Now, guys, this was a great day in my life. I actually got to hang out with Cicely Tyson on 3 separate occasions. So this was the first media tour we did together at a church talking about stroke and heart disease. And Cicely Tyson wouldn't look me in the face. She was mean. I'm like, what the heck? I'm the coolest dude. Y'all see how I roll. I'm like, I'm cool, I'm sweet, nice. She would not make eye contact with me at all. So we sit together in a media tour. They'll have a camera in front of you. They're either going to do live media, meaning it's a live TV show, live radio, recorded radio, or it'll be somebody just call in their interview and write down the notes. So when they would do that, we would sit back, drink our tea or whatever. So God rest her soul, she was bombing. So I had to save her on a couple questions. So as I kept saving on the questions, she started getting a little more friendly, a little more friendly, a little more friendlier. By the end of the 8-hour segment, man, she was hugging all over Doc. I'm like, boy, I'm in the paint. So she gave me a hug at the end of the talk, and everybody's like, Dr. Whitfield, she don't hug nobody. You're the man. 6 weeks later, I get a call. I ended up doing a keynote address at her high school for her graduating class. She has a high school in New Jersey. And then I spent one more time with her just to visit, and then she passed. And it was, you're talking about a great woman. So that's the picture of me and Cicely, and just great. But guys, there are no answers tonight. This is a session to either inspire, make you angry at me, make you think a little bit more about what might be happening, but we don't have the answers. But these are some of the things that I know we can start to look at and address when it tries to fix all these problems of African-American and African-American health. Historically, we have relied on religious and social communities for emotional support. So I've done the barbershop initiatives with my barber, and we had pamphlets in the office. He would sign folks up for health fairs, and we do blood pressure checks, that kind of thing. The church initiatives were big. My first church initiative was done with Yolanda King, and we went around to maybe 7 churches around the country to talk to African-American churches about health and getting healthy. Faith-based and social communities are making them more aware of the mental illnesses that members face. Will help these groups support their members and encourage African-American men to acknowledge their own needs, provide resources for members who need the help that the community alone can't give. But again, it's meeting people where they are. So many times you're not going to see me. You see me in the office, but you're going to see me other places as well. And one of my songs, I say, schools, churches, hospitals, prisons, there's not a place in the world that I won't go. So, I mean, I've done it. I've been to the prison. I used to work in the prison, but I have gone to separate prisons to talk to black men about their health. And so God has blessed me with this privileged life, and I'm going to keep saying it because it is very privileged. And so I feel like I owe it to those guys to at least give back what I can. Again, the theme of the day, meeting patients where they are, leading by example. If I'm going to tell you to do it, I need to be doing it as well. How can I be an overweight, obese physician telling you to lose weight if I'm not exercising? I started posting my workouts on social media some years ago. I ain't gonna lie, I was trying to show off a little bit. I was jumping on boxes. I was trying to dunk again. And but it turned into a friend of mine called me and said, can I lose weight by watching you, or do I need to do it as exercise? I was like, no, you need to do the exercises too. But it became a little cult following of folks. And then when I stopped for a minute, folks were like, bro, you're not posting. Well, I said, I thought y'all were getting tired of it. So I'm back posting a little bit more of my workouts to try to lead by example. Making small changes. When I talk to my patients, making small changes, setting goals, writing these things down so they can kind of follow their path. Those always help too. Diversity and cultural sensitivity amongst doctors of different races. We've got to learn about each other. We can't judge one another. We got to be comfortable with each other. I don't care if you're gay, if you went to jail. I don't judge my patients. I hug my patients if they feel comfortable. I mean, I'm different. I mean, maybe I'm not. I just know some doctors aren't comfortable with doing certain things the way that I do them. But for me, in my practice, that's what works best for me. And there's some patients I have never touched them before other than the stethoscope. And other patients, when they come in, we crying and hugging together. It just depends on the patient. You have to be comfortable. You have to know your patients. In the world of Me Too and all the crazy stuff that's going on, you have to be in tune to your patients to be able to interact with them. Addressing, again, we talked about social determinants of health. Use of technology. This AI thing is coming along. I'm still a little scary about it right now, but I think if you're putting the right information into AI, it can really help you evaluate some patients, and but there's a lot of work to do with artificial intelligence. Again, providing fair and equitable health care, which for some doctors is hard. We've had 2 physicians in my system. One was jogging around the lakes of LSU's campus, Louisiana State University's campus, and was calling black women the N-word, and he got fired immediately. And one was an ER pediatrician that was fired for derogatory words to black women. And so this is today, guys. This is not, I'm like, what is going on? Like, we're physicians. Physicians should be really held in high esteem, and I don't feel like we're there where we used to be. So we got some ways to, in my opinion, to gain that level of respect back. If you're going to go into primary care, we need to be incentivized. We're on the lower end of the totem pole. Pediatricians, gee whiz, ain't no way I practice pediatrics. They don't get paid anything. So it's the primary care doctors need to be incentivized to practice and then want to come back. So helping with loan repayment is a big deal. And I'm not talking about, there were folks that abused the loan system, which made it tough. But for those who paid into the system, there should be some incentives to help them pay, especially if they're serving in underserved communities. Again, increasing reimbursement and then training a workforce that resembles the population. So in a nutshell, guys, there's a lot to be done. I don't have all the answers. But I just kind of wanted to share me with you. This is not any other doctor in this world. This is Dr. Whitfield. This is how I roll. Some people don't like it. Some people love it. Some people trying to figure me out. But I'm committed to my patients, committed to my dream and to my vision. You saw the history from whence I came. Those folks made it possible for me to live this very blessed and privileged life that I live. So if I don't give back, I'm doing them a disservice as well as my children. And so I just thank you guys for the time. And on that note, this is the music video. Like I said, I got bars. So I hope this works. We're going to see. But this is the video I did with the Southern University School of Nursing that was inspired by Michigan State University School of Nursing. So because of you guys, I did this music video, and it took a lot of time, so y'all might want me to check. But it's not the greatest one, but it's pretty good. So let's see if we can get it. All right, good.
All my nurses, MAs, nurse practitioners, we need you so much. Thanks for all you do. It's important that we celebrate the nurses that we have, the devotion we receive from every person that we have, every color, doesn't matter who your partner is. Excited to have everyone together be a part of this. As nurses put their heart in this, first point of contact for patient care, easing the anxiety and unknowns of waiting there with knowledge and the gentleness and easing of the mind. Some attachments get developed, it's not easy all the time. Different faces, different cultures help us better with connecting similarities between the nurse and patients build trust. It's important when the days are trending down, we're still up. We a family and we can help on days you feel stuck. The appreciation for the nurses all around the world that give hope to every hospital and office that they're in. Without the work of all the nurses, there's no way that we can win. And every morning you get up and down and do the test again, giving flowers to the nurses of the hour. There's no way that we can do this thing without you. But today we're celebrating, it's about you. So today we show appreciation, knowing that we need you so much. 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 Giving flowers to the nurses of the hour. There's no way that we can do this thing without you. But today we're celebrating, it's about you. So today we show appreciation, knowing that we need you so much. 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 We find worth in every person, gender, race, religion, all diversity in nursing. We connected for a common cause, committed through the countless acts of service and the time involved. Appreciating all the dedication that we find in y'all. The lives that we save are connected to improvement and strides that we made. To see how far the field has come, I'm not surprised at this stage. I'm bestowed at this time a melting pot of professionals whose goals are aligned. There's not one particular background that can help us move the wheel. There's minorities with skill sets that can help improve the field. Possessing the mental state of chasing excellence and being righteous, and give patients a chance to receive care from those who share likeness.
I almost feel like I need to do a hey.
Turn up if you want.
No, I'm turned down for what? Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was so informative, and I think one of the things that it always makes me think about, I really appreciate the history that you brought. I think that really shows how far we have come, but how far we still need to go. And so thank you for bringing that to the forefront. We are going to move forward with our question and answer section. And so there will be people coming up and down, I believe, with some cards and pencils. So if you have any questions, we'll give you an opportunity to write those questions down. But I'm going to introduce you to our facilitator of our question and answer portion. So Brandon Henry is currently a doctoral candidate at Michigan State University's College of Osteopathic Medicine. He is in his 4th year of medical school and will be graduating this spring 2024. Brandon currently holds his undergraduate Bachelor of Science degree in Behavioral and Systems Neuroscience from Michigan State University. And with a passion for DEI, he has a passion for DEI and mentorship. Brandon has been a contributor to many initiatives within MSU's College of Osteopathic Medicine and his community, aiming to help improve outreach and increase opportunities for people of color interested in medicine. Brandon has been the president of MSU's College of Osteopathic Medicine's chapter of the Student National Medical Association. In 2020, he was voted the Student of Osteopathic Medicine's Student of the Month in July 2020 and featured in Spartan Dio magazine in winter 2021 edition. Becoming the role model you needed and currently completing multiple research projects within the field of orthopedics. Let's welcome the doctoral candidate, Brandon Henry, to the stage.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Thank you, Dr. Whitfield, for coming and joining us today. It's been an honor kind of sitting here listening to you and kind of, following you on social media and stuff like that, and you're doing amazing things. So I want to say thank you for that. So I have a few note cards here. So I'm sure there's going to be some more coming, and then I have some questions of my own as well. All right, so the first one is, so as a black male physician, you already recognize the systemic challenges that hinder other black men from pursuing careers in medicine and healthcare. In addition to addressing those structural barriers, what are some ways that things that can be done to increase advocacy efforts towards policy reform?
I think I know for me, I came out of medical school with $120,000 in debt. To be dead, but I'm 55 years old too. Probably like 240 now, I'm scared. So I think we need to really look at policy that will incentivize individuals to go into primary care. I mean, they call us so how can we help these young people go into the fields if they're going to come out of debt and not make the money to pay back? So that definitely loan repayments or loan forgiveness of some sort. Some folks have a problem with that, believe it or not. But I think that's very important, and there's no incentive to go into it. So many of my colleagues, as I said earlier, want to go into orthopedics or ophthalmology where they make tons of money. But how am I going to get them to you if we don't have the primary care doctors to refer? And then when I was coming up, they had AHEC and some other things where you would go into the urban the communities and volunteer and work and train. I don't even know if those programs are available, if they incentivize them as much as they used to. And so I think we need to get back to those models as well, training young physicians that come from their communities to go back to their communities. The medical school at Southern University would be great. I know the LSU and Tulane system throw away about 300 applications a year that would probably meet the recommendations to go to a medical school that would be predominantly black in the community. And so we could take some of those students and help them out as well. So medical schools, reimbursement, loan forgiveness, higher incentives to go into primary care are some of my suggestions. I hope I answered that correctly or efficiently enough.
I think you did a pretty good job. All right, so the next question is, so how do we address some of these cultural and societal expectations around masculinity so that black men can positively engage with healthcare?
Corny response, but we have to be the change. You have to get black male physicians in front of black physicians, black potential physicians. And so from our fraternities and sororities that deal with our black women as well, we have to be the change. We have to be the model. So I said in the presentation that me mentoring to these young folks, going out and speaking. There's a school in my community that is now going to have a pre-med program, and they asked me to be the mentor and help sponsor. So I'm calling in other physicians to help me as well, creating opportunities for those guys to shadow. The problem is it's just not enough of us. In Baton Rouge, we do have gastro, cardiology, primary care, but we don't have any African-American dermatologists in the area, so it's hard for us to create opportunities for the young folks. If, I would say you want to be something, you need to see something. Well, a lot of them are seeing the things that are happening in the street, but they're not seeing a whole lot of us out there. So we've got to create more opportunities. So we've got to train up more people that look like us to help us.
All right, this is an HBCU question. Now, granted, my mother and my little brother, they went to A&T, so they had some conversations about that, the band thing between Southern and... So the question is, are there any parts of your HBCU experience that you believe PWIs need to utilize to create a sense of safety and belonging for Black men pursuing a degree within the healthcare field?
I don't know if they can. I tell you, the security. So when I interviewed, this is a crazy story. I told you guys I'm a member of Alpha Alpha fraternity. My first interview was at Georgetown. It was in a group of 30 people, very impersonal. I was the only African American in the room. They took us on a big tour, and then we did these individual interviews, and we came back in this room, and that was kind of the end of it. When I got to Meharry, a guy named McKinley Graham, who's a physician in Houston now, a very good friend, who's a member of Kappa Alpha Psi, talked a lot of trash. He picks me up from the airport. We go back to the school. He says, "You got some shorts and tennis shoes?" Like, yeah. So we go play basketball with a bunch of guys that were from the school. It was small, intimate. We had lunch with everybody. I got to meet a bunch of folks. And so HBCUs provide a sense of home and caring. I mean, you're talking about Southern University has 6,800 students, and I might know the names of them. If I don't know their names personally, I know about 1,200 students just on Facebook. I'm a board of supervisors member. Some of these teachers know a lot of these kids personally. So the HBCU provides a sense of there's been studies that show that the students seem to be more successful, more comfortable, and then there's some leeway in the educational system too. The criteria is not as stringent. And so it gives that child an opportunity to catch up and to get to the level of many of their physicians. I have individuals that graduated from Meharry with me that told me they made 7s and 8s on the MCAT that are now some of the top leading physicians in the country. When I went to Ohio State Sports Medicine's program, I did my fellowship there. The only two people that had not passed the program was one female and one African-American male. So there was a lot of pressure on me to pass that program. And so when I got the same resources that my 3 white colleagues that I'm still very good friends with now had, I scored the highest score of all of them on the sports medicine examination. And I'm trying to figure out what was the difference. And it was just that I was able to get the same resources. Meharry, when I was there, had a 59 or 60% pass rate on the USMLE 1. The students at Vanderbilt who came over and did an ARC Ventures board review program with us had a 99% pass rate. Vanderbilt had instructors who wrote test questions. Meharry had none. We brought suitcases to this ARC Ventures program that had Goodman and Gilman and all of our textbooks in suitcases. And we were my regimen during my preparation for the USMLE Part 1 was get up at 6, light workout, have breakfast. We would study from 8 to 6. You had a 2-hour break, and we would study from 8 p.m. to midnight. For 8 weeks is what we did. And only 59% of us passed the test. The guys at Vanderbilt were like, what are y'all doing? They were going out having drinks. They'd come to the review program. They were gone. The review program was 4 weeks. We had an additional 8 weeks to study for. They had a 99% pass rate. Now it's 59%. So what's the difference in that? What made the difference? And they had instructors that wrote questions and instructors that were actively involved in the process, where Meharry didn't have that. And so I'm reading an entire textbook when they were given a syllabus about this thick to study and review, and the concepts that were on there were the same ones that were repeated on the test. And what we started to do was make a test bank. And so every student was responsible for remembering 1 or 2 concepts on the test and writing it down. And over a course of 2 or 3 years after I graduated, we had a test bank where our pass rate is now in the 70s or 80s, but we're still not where we need to be. And so how do you make, again, equity versus equal? It's not equitable. I mean, we had some similar resources. We all went to the same board review program, but if your instructors are writing questions and they're not giving them the answers, but they're teaching them the concepts that they will be tested on, they have an unfair advantage. Yeah.
So how are health disparities for black men impacted by the criminal justice system?
Wow.
It's a big one.
So I'm from the state of Louisiana, guys. And before we even get to criminal justice, you got to remember in 1990 when Norplant came out, David Duke, who was a former Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, was promoting Norplant to African American women that were on welfare. They would get $100 a year if they took Norplant because they were trying to reduce us from producing babies. That's a whole nother story. But that's the state. That's the same state where the guy that came up with Negro medicine, drapetomania, but slaves escaped. He's from Louisiana. That's the same place where Whip Peter was taught, the slave I showed you with the back. So I come from a pretty racist state. And so give me the question one more time and I'll make sure I'm hitting it because I just went on a tangent there for a minute.
So the health disparities for black men, specifically within the criminal justice system, like how are they impacted?
I mean, so I worked in the prison system. I was the medical doctor for 20 years at East Baton Rouge Parish Prison. That's where I met a lot of the hip hop artists. I don't have an answer for that. It's tough. Self-inflicted, self-induced, some of these things we have definitely brought on ourselves, but I'll give you guys an example. I had an inmate ask me one time, Dr. Whitfield, would you hire me? And I said, who are you? He said, I'm 19 years old. I was attending Southern University. I come from a broken home, don't have a lot of income. He robbed a couple places to get money to pay for school. He does his jail time. He gets out. He applies for jobs. He can't work. And he said, would you hire me? I said, no. Hard to say no, but I told him no. He said, why would you say no? I said, because there's probably 3 or 4 other kids like you that didn't do that deserve the same opportunities you, so it'd be hard for you to hire me. He said, I appreciate your honesty. But he said, that's why I'll never make it, because I will never be given a chance. And so our penal justice system doesn't really give these black men a chance, even after time is being served, because once that's on your record, you're scarred for life. And so it's hard for these guys to get back into the system. And a lot of people say, oh, you're making excuses. And these people, well, all of us have made mistakes and done things that we're probably uncomfortable with. But when you make a mistake in the justice system, it follows you for the rest of your life. And there's very few things you can do. To give you another example is when it comes to expungement. In many cases, these guys can't afford to get their records expunged, so it won't be on their record. And so it's stuck with them for life, even if they're doing the right things. And so I don't really have an answer for that, but we've got to come up with an answer for it. Our new governor is passing some really stringent issues on crime. Louisiana has 3 cities that rank in the top 10 per capita for violence. Baton Rouge, New Orleans, and Shreveport. I think Baton Rouge, New Orleans is like 4 and 5. Shreveport's number 9 per capita for the murder capital. So we're in the top 10 for the murder capital across the country. And so it's a tough balance, but again, you got to go look back at the income and wealth gaps, the poverty, the issues in the community. And I just don't, if you really look at what's happening, I don't know if we can ever fully close that gap. I'm a spiritual praying man, but if you just want to look at the numbers and statistics, it's going to be tough for us to close that gap. And the justice system is not designed to really help. And if you look at the prison of the pipeline system, I mean, it's a financial, these guys make money off this system. And so it's tough to help these young guys. And so all I can do is inspire, try to motivate. Ton of these guys want to be hip-hop artists. And I'm like, dude, I do this rap thing for fun. Like, this is not what I do. That's the part-time gig. It's the fun thing. I do it to motivate and inspire. But I really don't have an answer. But it's a tough situation.
So I have a question as well. This is kind of my own personal question. I'm getting ready to finish medical school. My little brother is actually he's been a cardiac ICU nurse for 3 years. So shout out to the nurses.
Smarter than both of them.
Exactly.
I'm still struggling with EKG. Yeah.
I tell my brother, I tell my family all the time, if they actually need something done, call him. Don't call me. I don't know. And he's actually just started a CRNA program out in Richmond, Virginia.
Highest fan.
He's a smart man. And so a lot of times we have conversations about like just being in the work environment, whether it be in the hospital or for me in different rotations and being in different clinical environments where nobody else really looks like you in terms of the staff, at least. How do we cope with dealing with this on a day-to-day basis? Do you have any advice just for, me, my little brother, and also other students, whether it be nursing or medical students alike?
You see the background I came from, and my father. So one thing I do with RJ every night. RJ is 5 years old, and if you see him right now and he's standing right here, and I say, RJ, get better, he's going to say every day. I say hard work, he's going to say dedication. And I always tell him that he has to repeat after me. We do positive affirmations every night. And so I'm teaching him to be bold, proud, and strong of who he is and not fearful of who he is. And so when I walk into environments, my experience as an African-American man with a history that I just gave you, pledging Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity and having these brothers surround me, I'm not scared, I'm not intimidated, and so I don't meet a stranger, and I approach and try to meet people where they are. So the same approach I have to treating patients is what I do with my white colleagues that may not be as receptive, but I've been very fortunate. I just don't have that problem. I approach them the way I want to be treated. I treat people the way I want to be treated, and I have been treated bad by some of my colleagues before in the past, and have ignored them. So it's about self-confidence, knowing who you are, knowing what you are. And I'll give you guys another quick story. My very first rotation in residency was a pediatric hospital. And I'm thinking peds, but I'm not thinking pediatric hospital, where kids are dying of very, very serious illnesses. So I am nervous as heck. I got the beeper, that's how long ago it was, on my neck. I'm sleeping in a chair like this, scared to death. And my first beep is for a little kid named Jordan with sickle cell. This is like yesterday. And so I go to the nurse's station. I don't know how to write orders. I don't know. This is my first day of residency, and it's at a pediatric hospital. I am scared to death. And so this very, very ornery, mean and surly charge nurse, come here, boy. Let me show you what to do. So she sits there with me and shows me how to write orders and how to facilitate orders, when to call, when not to call. I didn't go to sleep that night. So the next morning when all the colleagues get there, still mean and surly, I'm rolling on the note. I'm just kicking this stuff like, them looking at me like, how did he know all this stuff, you know? So they don't know I didn't sleep the whole night. And I only got one call the whole night, a slow night. To say all that to say, mentorship is important, finding someone that can kind of take you under your wings and help you out. But there are going to be many instances as African-American physicians where we are by ourselves. And so the confidence that I have built in myself, finding someone that could help you, it's just tough, and you'll have to know. But I think I'm blessed to be in an environment where all of the people that I work with, most of them either look like me. One of my nurses, white, gay male, he's the coolest dude in the world, you know what I'm saying? He faces challenges all the time, so he's easy. He feels like he has some of the same struggles that I have. So, you know, we have conversations all the time about what he has to deal with. He's married to a black man. And so finding people that have like-mindedness, but there are going to be situations where each one have to suck it up. And it's going to be tough, you know, it's going to be tough. But I think your personality, and I don't know you well, but just the demeanor and how you get off, you're not going to have that problem. You're not going to have a problem. I think, again, confidence in yourself, building confidence in others, people trusting you and knowing what you do. Now, I was always told by my father, who came from that civil rights movement, that you're going to have to work much, much harder than your white colleagues to be considered equal. And I'm just telling you what he told me. And I lived that way. So if they stayed up 8 hours, I'm staying up 12. That's just what I did. And so it made me better. And there was a time where that same doctor that I told you guys about that's a little bit overweight. No, this was actually, Dr. Turk is the surgeon. Dr. Jenkins was the orthopedic surgeon. Dr. Turk, there was a black female patient with pelvic pain that comes into ER at 2 in the morning. One of my very pompous, arrogant white colleagues, he was a surgical tech, and he was the surgery resident, and I was on a surgery rotation, says that she had pelvic inflammatory disease. Well, this black female denied she had never said I'd never had sex before. She was a virgin. She was of age, but she denied all this stuff. And I kept saying, man, it looks like she's got appendicitis. So when we get to morning rounds, Dr. Turk never looked at me in the face. He kept looking at the guy, and he says, why Dr. Whitfield? He's not looking at me, he's talking to me though. He's like, why Dr. Whitfield did you let him tell you that she had PID when everything in her history suggests that she didn't? He said, this girl has appendicitis, and we're about to take her to surgery now. She should have had surgery 4 hours ago. And so that showed you, again, some of the implicit biases. This man thought because she's a black female, she probably was promiscuous, that she probably had a pelvic inflammatory disease. Well, she didn't. She had appendicitis. And so I almost killed a person for not being confident in myself. So you're going to have to make sure that you're confident in your diagnosis and know what you're doing. So that extra work and time that I put in and then not believing my own diagnosis almost hurt a patient. And so he called my hand and he talked to me later and said, don't you ever do that again. If this guy doesn't believe what you say, then you need to call me. I don't care what time. He said, you call me, you better be right. But if you had called me on this one, we would have done surgery on her 4 hours ago. And she could have easily died or had some serious complications from a ruptured appendix. So long story short, to say, having confidence in yourself, knowing what you know, and you're going to have to work a little harder sometimes because we are judged sometimes as African-American men in those environments like we're not as good, or so it's tough. Probably the best answer, but definitely one.
All right. Some two more questions. In what ways should patients of color advocate for themselves with those doctors who do not understand our needs and concerns?
Find a new doctor. That's an easy one. I had a patient the other day that was just totally, she brand new to me, knee pain, shoulder pain with clicking in the shoulder, and I do sports medicine for 2 years. And I'm like, did x-rays, MRI, anything? No. I said, well, why didn't you say anything? Well, I don't tell people what to do. I said, this is your body. You have to advocate for yourself. And so, I mean, a simple x-ray, even 6 months into this chronic shoulder pain, would have given us some information, and we probably just an orthopedist. She had a tear in her glenoid labrum, and now she's going to have surgery. So she lost 2 years of being active. She was a volleyball player, recreational volleyball player. She lost 2 years from someone not paying attention to her. Simply like, what was he telling you? And I was able to look at the notes. It was just like anti-inflammatories, ice rest. Like, wait a minute, she's telling you this is year 2, not month 2. This is year 2 of shoulder pain. So advocating for self. And if you don't like the doctor, and I think I talked to someone about this earlier, I have told patients, if you're not going to be truthful with me, find another doctor. Because I can't help you, and you're going to put me in a position where I may hurt you. And so I'm that way. I'm cold-blooded. I love my patients hard. Like people talk about tough love. There's no tough love. I either love you or I don't love you. But I love my patients. And so if I don't feel like I can connect with them, just like my white colleague who referred that black patient to me, I give him the utmost respect because he recognized I can't help this guy. And he's going to put me in a position where he hadn't had a colon in 5 years. He won't get his prostate exam. He won't follow up and get his blood work. This guy had diabetes that was out of control. So it goes both ways. Transference and countertransference. I'm sure my students know what I mean when I say those 2 words. That happens amongst patients sometimes. If you have uncomfortable feelings, you might need to get rid of that patient or advise them to go somewhere else. But you have to advocate for yourself. And if that doctor is not listening and paying attention to you, by that second visit, find another doctor. That might be the only one I got right so far.
No, I think all of those are good as well. So this one says, thank you for your time tonight. As you mentioned, medical school itself can serve as a barrier to increasing the pool of black physicians. What recommendations do you have for improving outreach, recruitment, and retention? And retention was dark, underlined, emphasized, with the question mark at the end.
So it's not medical school. I mean, we're struggling with that same thing as the member of the Board of Supervisors of Southern. That's one of our big things is recruitment and retention of these students. We do purges sometimes, and so how do you get messages to students about, and I'm going to come back to that, but about paying bills and that type of thing. So recruitment is huge. So again, meeting people where they are. It's going to take you and I to go out in the community and say, we're doctors and we're doing this thing, and this is why it's important that you do it. And there's a lot of young people that want to pursue it but don't know how to go about doing it. So from the Jack and Jill programs across the country to Alpha Alpha and Kappa Alpha Psi and all the other fraternities that have physicians, leadership in their organizations, they need to be reaching out to these young black men and women and trying to get them engaged and make them know why it's important to become doctors. So we have to be advocates for those programs. Retaining is a whole other thing. So once you're recruited and got them interested in wanting to come, making sure they're prepared to take examinations and perform well. So they've got to pass those examinations and perform well so they can attend these medical schools. So if you've recruited them with your organizations in the community, whether it be civic organizations, fraternities, sororities, whatever they may be, now we've got them getting through the testing. Now we have to retain them. And how to retain them, again, incentives, scholarships, tuitions. I have a guy now that wants to give back to Meharry because he had to, I forgot his personal situation, but because of his personal situation, he wants to do a scholarship for students that are in the same personal situation that he was when he came in. So we have to give back to the schools. Usually our donation levels are a lot lower than our attendance. And so we struggle with that at Southern University. Like, you graduate from school, but you're still mad about registration from 20 years ago. Get over it. You got to get back. If you want the school to get better, you always complain about the school, and that's just like with voting. You complain about voting, but you didn't vote. You complain about the person office, but you didn't vote. I don't want to hear you. I don't want to hear what you got to say. If you didn't vote, I don't care if you had no choice. You got to vote. Same thing with the schools. You have to donate back, give back to the schools, and participate. Be the example that you want to be.
All right, I think we're out of time. So,
guys, again, I can't thank y'all enough. I thought y'all gonna be throwing rocks and stuff at me. I made it through. I'm still going out the back door, just in case.
Dr. Whitfield, if you could come up to the podium. We would like to present you with one of the prints from our local artist, Mila Lynn. So Mila's work features watercolor and oil paintings on cassette tapes and vinyl records, paying homage
Oh my God, that is beautiful.
to the importance of music and storytelling in Black history. And she hopes you see this work through a holistic lens celebrating Black culture.
Nice. Thank you. This is awesome.
We also have this tribute from Governor Gretchen Whitmer. It is signed by Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist II, and Senator Sam Singh, and the State Representative Julie Brixey.
Thank you. Thank you.
And at this time, I will call up Dr. Gilbert to close us out.
A couple things. So you were talking about the people that raised you. I want to, Dr. Walker told me that she did not tell you I'm from New Orleans. It's only 77 miles from my door to your door. Okay, well, now listen. Now, I didn't clear this. I'm about to get in trouble. I didn't clear this with Dean DeYoung or Dean Small or EVP Beauchamp, but listen now. I am going to ask you to invite me and my students. That's something. How you going to tell somebody to invite you somewhere?
I'm scared, but I'm listening.
So I'm going to challenge you to invite me and our students to either Southern Homecoming or Bayou Classic so we can do a clinic. Real talk.
That would be awesome.
So, Darica, like all y'all like, yeah, for real? Yeah, no, for real. See, because you were showing the pictures and I don't think they really know.
They have no idea.
Right? So my challenge is for you to invite us so we can come do a clinic.
You missed this year. Fantasia was there.
I know we don't. That's.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah. But the people that made us, I want to send a shout out. So my people at home in New Orleans are watching you, and one of the nurses that has contributed to my life is Marianne Robinson. And she was now retired, but she was very excited that we were doing this series, so I'm going to send a shout out to her. I want to thank you for saying yes to coming, to joining us for this series, and for being so candid, about your own experience and really embedding that into kind of helping us think about the way in which we practice and the way in which we show up. And so thank you. I have a few thank yous. So she is not here tonight. I want to thank, first of all of our sponsors. All of our sponsors have been phenomenal. Because she's not here, I want to mention very especially Nichelle Lawrence. Now, y'all go to Socialite Society. Okay, y'all buy her new book. It's called I'm Praying for You, Girl. She's not here, but please support our locally owned bookstore, which is in the Lansing Mall. We couldn't do this program. I want to thank Latasia, Ayandala, Amanda. All my love to Renee Shepard, who, oh my gosh, put all of this together, all the things that you don't even see in the virtual thing. So thank you to Renee. Thank you to all my team. Barbara, I don't know if you're still here. Yes, there's Barbara. None of this would happen without Barbara, the boss. Okay, so I want to thank you for joining us. We did have to postpone, but I'm happy to announce that we have rescheduled Reverend Dr. William Barber, and that will be Tuesday, March 12th at 5 o'clock back at the Wharton Center. So I look forward to seeing you all. The other thing that I am supposed to mention, the DEIJ committee of the Henry Ford MSU Partnership and the College of Nursing are partnering to do or co-sponsoring the Health Equity Film Series. So the next film that we're going to show is called The Deadliest Disease in America. We are showing that Wednesday, February 28th at 5:30. We will be in the Bott building. You can join us. Now, y'all know when Dr. G invites y'all to stuff, I feed y'all, right? So we're going to have dinner and a movie, so join us for that. And then we're going to have a talk back with our good friend, Dr. Renee Branch Kennedy, and so she's going to do the talk back after the film. So please, again, join us. There are flyers out on the table. I'd love to see you on March 28th. I want to thank you all for hanging in there with us. Thank you for being with us throughout this whole month. Dr. Whitfield is going to invite us to Bayou Classic or to Southern Homecoming. So y'all will see photos of our students doing a health clinic. No, that's why I mentioned those people that I didn't clear. Well, in that case, yes, you have to pay for it. So thank you all so much. Please come shake Dr. Whitfield's hand. We have some snacks for you in the back. Thank you to all of you on Zoom, all my family. Thank you for forgiving me for not being at home. One more thing, y'all. It is my oldest nephew's birthday, and I have missed it because I am here with you all. So if on 3, you can say happy birthday, Jaden. So 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday, Jaden. Thank you all so much. Good night. Quickly, Terry Frazier and another one of the brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity have a gift for you.
Oh, good. Brothers, come on up, brothers. Hold up. On behalf of the Brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity here in Lansing, we want to say thank you for coming and dropping some knowledge to our community and continue to show Alpha excellence in all that we do, both here locally and internationally. So we want to say thank you. And also on behalf of Sweet Encounter Bakery Cafe, Black-owned business, we want to gift you with a cupcake in a jar. It's gluten-free, so it should be good for you to eat and enjoy on your way back home.
Make it back to the room.
Hey, and it's just a little piece of Lansing as Michigan State supports all Black-owned businesses, and we're proud of you for being here, brother.
All right.
We'll grab a picture. Get in front here.
Where you want us?
Yeah, well